Welcome to Milano, Shirin. It's such an honor to have you here at PAC with this occasion of your presentation today. How are you doing?
Good, and I'm glad to be back to Milan, to Italy. The weather is fine. I love visiting the space of PAC.
You said that art is an urgency, is a way of living. Your art is very personal, and somehow art saved your soul. Can you please tell us more?
Well, I've always tried to explain that the only reason I'm an artist, because there was always a personal urgency to look for some answers to questions that I had for myself as a woman, as an Iranian living in exile, as an Iranian who was a product of a revolution, and tried to make sense of my destiny that was defined by socio-political and religious issues. So I've never seen my life separate from the reality of everyday life, and therefore my work is really an expression of the way I view the world and my journey as a human being.
And you talk about rebirth. How do you reinvent yourself, and how do you keep the fire of your heart alive?
It's a really good question about how, as an artist, we can keep on creating without stagnation, without feeling that we're just repeating ourselves for our audience, for the market, and that we feel still invested. For me, I get very bored very quickly when I see myself repeating an idea or a signature work, and I feel that every time I embrace a new project or even a new language, I'm a student again. It's a new beginning. It's like meeting a new person, and therefore you discover about yourself certain capacities and strength and things that you didn't know it existed in you. So I believe in artists can grow old but can still be young as artists by continuing to evolve and not allowing the convention of repetition.
It's like an artist is always a child in his heart. To create art, he has to be a child in his heart, correct?
It's absolutely true, because I think that no matter how old you are, there's always this child inside of you. And there's this element of madness and this element that, you know, it really can't cope with reality. And I think what better than being an artist and have the freedom of expression, freedom of evolving and seeing the world with new eyes every time.
You talked about artistic freedom, to be in search for new mediums. We know that you started with photography, then you explored video art, and then you explored film. What excites you the most?
Well, I think when you mention freedom, I think most of us in the West take the concept of freedom for granted. And freedom of expression is incredible privilege. And I'm very conscious of it, because I'm coming from a country that it devoids its people of freedom of expression, of any kind of freedom. And so perhaps one of the reasons that I'm so nomadic about moving on from one form to another and being so restless is because I'm enjoying so much this freedom that I have as an artist. And I don't mean freedom in terms of financially, because some of my better works are made with hardly any money, or the money that I make from photographs that I put in video or vice versa. So for me, there's something that is very exciting to simultaneously work in different mediums and have different love affairs with all of them, but never really be completely loyal. So I'm not faithful to any of them. I just keep crossing the borders, and I really like it that way.
There is a sense of duality that is very present in all of your works. Especially, I was very moved in the film Land of Dreams to see that specifically in that project, but also in all of your project. And how did this specific project came together?
Well, I feel like as a human being, I'm embodiment of all forms of duality. I'm from the East but live in the West. I am extremely strong, but I'm extremely fragile and vulnerable. My work is magic realism, surrealism, dreams that has a footing in reality and footing in things that don't make sense. I work black and white. My work are very dark and disturbing, often violent, but are very beautiful and emotional. And I think this kind of paradoxical, it exists in every single human being, in a way, who we are on the inside and who we are on the outside, how we see ourselves, and how the world perceives us. And I think that perhaps the duality that has found itself in my work is because the way I see everything, that I never see anything as a whole. I'm not completely Iranian, I'm not completely American. So to be able to capture a portrait of America through Land of Dreams, with the idea of dreams, with the collection of American people's dreams, and then finding in their dreams that their dreams are not so different than mine, it's just complicating even more the fact that we as human beings are deeply complex and very similar but completely different at the same time. I could talk about the Land of Dreams extensively, which we don't have time to, but it was really my first entry into making a film in a culture that I've lived in America more than in my own country.
You talk a lot about women in your works, and I have a personal question, if you don't mind me asking. How much becoming a mother influenced you in your work, if it did somehow?
Yeah, I've been obsessed with, pursuing other models of women who coincidentally have been creative as writers, as filmmakers, as political activists, but happen to have a single child and have really had conflicted between being a mother and nurturing life, yes, yet attending to their career and their passion as a woman. And that's what my journey has been as a woman, as a mother, how to play the conventional role as a woman. And I love my son deeply. I don't think I've been a traditional mother, but we have very, very close relationship. But I somehow have been drawn to other women who, again, have been navigating between being a traditional mother role, of a woman role, yet totally untraditional at the same time. And I think it's possible to do it. It's just not the conventional way of doing it.
Timelessness is a concept that pervades in your work. How would you describe it? Why you are capable of doing something that is timeless? I am an architect, and I love to remember that once Goethe said that architecture is petrified music. So I wanted to ask you if you feel this way, if somehow the fact that you do a body of work, you have a body of work that is always very, very present, that doesn't age. This is great. I mean, this is something fantastic. How do you feel it?
First of all, I've never been able to make work that is newsworthy, like it's a response to a news. I'm not really interested in realism, so that already separates me and distances me from timeful narratives. But there's another important reason. I come from a culture that is deeply poetic, and I would even say full of mysticism. And I think there's something about Iranian notion of mysticism that it sort of transcends time and place. If you really study Iranian poetry and literature, you understand our greatest mystic, such as Rumi, Hafiz, Sa'di. You know, they have written in a way that speaks to the Westerners as well as their local people, but also they're endlessly, timelessly relevant. And I think it's because when you tap into very important existential issues about what it's like to be a human on this planet, history continues to repeat itself. Issues may seem new, but they're not. The notion of violence, atrocity, genocide, fear, and exile, all of these ideas that and there's many, many more, these are not experiences that it's happening in modern times or contemporary times, and it will continue to happen into the future. But it's more the question of human spirit and how, in our time where we live, how do we cope with it? One of the reasons I actually work in black and white, it's because it helps with that idea of timelessness. And I also, as much as possible, stay away from contemporary, you know, clothing and identification, because for me, I would like to see 100 years from now, people would see my work and completely relate to it. So a lot of it is intuitive, but I think a lot of it has to do with where I come from.
What is, to end this beautiful conversation, what is the urge that you have in this moment to communicate, if there's something?
Well, at the moment as I speak to you, it's been very, very difficult few days. We first had on last Friday, the Nobel Peace Prize going to Nargis Mohammadi, an Iranian activist in prison, which excited us. On Saturday, the attack by Hamas on Israelis, and now the war has exploded between Israel and Palestine. And yesterday, one of our most renowned filmmakers was stabbed to death with his wife. So there's not a day that has gone by that there hasn't been lots of emotions and anxiety. So deep inside, I'm an optimist, and I think I'm praying that there are people on the side of humanity. There are people who see between the good and evil, those who are in power. Of course, the people, the citizens of the world have a lot of power by demonstrating what they feel and how they react. But I think, I hope the international community helps to cease fire, but also help this genocide to continue on both sides. And peace is a concept that I am afraid is not very attractive to many people, because war brings them a lot more profits, and human life is not so critical for them. But we as citizens of the world, globally speaking, we need to protect humanity and defend those who are powerless. So to be honest, it's been very paralyzing, and I'm just praying every day and praying that the good would come on our side, and these poor people on both sides will see better days.
I was very moved when I saw your very beautiful movie, Looking Out for Kulthum. I wanted to ask you, you were crucial to actually give a voice to women that somehow the Western civilization would have not known if it wasn't for your work.
Well, the truth is that when I make the work that I do, and when I go to women such as Kulthum, the most iconic artist of the 20th century in the Arab world, Shahnoush Parsipur, who wrote Woman Without Men, Forough Farrokhzad, whose writing I use on my photographs. It's not so much to show to the world something as they are women that inspire me the most, women who have lived and survived male-dominated societies and yet have succeeded to become an individual. So not only their music or their literature have become some of the the highest level, but also the lives that they lived deeply inspires me as an example of women. And so at the same time, I think that these tributes give me a great sense of pride, because we were speaking the other day that we come from the country, from culture that after animals is the woman and then the men. So women have always been oppressed, abused, discriminated against, and really have been used as a kind of a battleground for men's ideological, political, and religious rhetoric. And then there you go, you have jewels of women who, despite this oppression, have risen and have to this day become the most significant intellectual and artistic gifts of their country. So I think it's a kind of a celebration of female sisterhood and being able to see, and for the rest of the world to see, that the energy and the level of resilience of the woman prevails in that part of the world, unlike the image that the world has about us. And I don't need to say anything about women like freedom in Iran, as the whole world witnessed the courage of Iranian women. So they inspire me, and I think I put myself in their stories, in their narratives, and try to learn and teach myself how I can go on in my life, really.